I want to thank Rotary so much for partnering with York High School, with District 205 in this endeavor. I think that what we're about to be able to provide for our students is remarkable. And Melissa is going to get more into the weeds about what the program is and what this partnership has looked like. I have been here at Rotary a number of times with Dr. Moyer to talk a little bit about the why of our focus at York for our students. And really, the fundamental foundation of what we're doing for students is really wanting to meet each of their individual needs and help them grow. Academically, personally, obviously professionally after they leave our high school. And so the two goals that were written the summer before this past one are going to be goals that we continue to focus on measuring the results of them for years to come. And one is a growth goal, and one is opening access to college career internships and life responsibilities in high school and afterwards. And so the program that Melissa's going to talk about is really speaking to that life part of our goal. You know, we want our students to persist after high school through their college experiences or their post-secondary career experiences, and we want them to do it in a healthy manner and to be able to make healthy decisions. And so the forming of groups, and similar to what you're going to learn about today, is part of many of those reasons. So the timeline of this project with Rotary and with York, specifically with Melissa and I, we started in the fall of 2016 meeting, and in April we had the initial meeting between Elmhurst, Rotary, and York, and that was to kind of set the precedent for the program. Last May, we had a follow-up meeting between Rotary and York to finalize a proposal and expand the prevention efforts, and then in mid-May, Rotary's board approved the final proposal and finances for the program, and in June, District 205's board approved the donation so that we could get this launched. And then in August, this last month, meeting with the Rotary and York to approve the expenditures and talk about the plan and the furniture. And then, of course, today we're here to give you guys another update. So I'm going to call Melissa up. Thank you.
I just want to echo what Erin mentioned, how thankful we are to be able to partner with you. You know, within a school we have limited resources, and we try to make sure that we're prioritizing to best serve our students. But really to be able to serve our students in this way is wonderful. So I'm excited to share with you a little bit more information about exactly what we're talking about. So there are a couple of different components to the program that we're going to partner with the Rotary Club on. The first is this early detection and intervention program that we're going to do in partnership with Rosecrance Health Network, which is located in Rockford, but they actually have locations all over. So I'll talk with you a little bit more about some of the locations that we might be able to connect our students with. And the second are expanded prevention efforts that we've been able to come up with based on some back and forth conversation throughout these meetings through a dedicated group space at York to be able to work with students in groups. So I'll start with the early detection and intervention. That's with Rosecrance. No, go ahead. You're good. So just a little bit more about what this looks like. So what will happen is York has set up a partnership with Rosecrance Health Network. We're working directly with a contact named Matt Quinn, who's actually an Elmhurst resident, a York grad, works with Rosecrance. And so it's kind of nice to, again, circle around and bring back that community element. Matt really wants to be able to give back more to Elmhurst, but hasn't always been sure how to connect with the York community. So what will happen is if the York Student Services team, so that's comprised of social workers, counselors, deans, psychologists, if they, as they are working with students, identify a student who may be currently using or at risk for substance use, they can actually make a referral to Rosecrance. A Rosecrance representative will come to the school, which is great because it breaks down that, that extra barrier of getting a student to a different location. They will complete an initial evaluation. That evaluation is actually free of charge. And then based on the results of that evaluation, Rosecrance will recommend one of 3 different levels of intervention. So I'll share with you on the next slide. So go ahead and click the first. So the most intensive intervention that they might recommend is either a residential treatment or a partial hospitalization at one of their Rockford campuses. This would actually look like a student going to the campus and living there. Either the residential treatment is full-time, the partial hospitalization would mean they would come home on the weekends, but they would be there during the week. So this is a support that we can provide to our students who are at the greatest risk, which is great to be able to really intervene at that point. The second level is kind of one step down. It's intensive outpatient treatment that they have at their LaGrange office. And so that would look like after school for students who might not need as intensive of a support, but still need some pretty regular supports to be able to intervene with their level of need. The third is something that we are now able to add to this continuum. It's substance abuse counseling at York High School, that Rosecrans members would actually come into our high school during the school day and be able to provide a substance abuse counseling group for our students, which breaks down that barrier of getting students somewhere. It breaks down that barrier of, I don't have time. Well, you're at school already, so we can get you this. It also is a nice way for us to continue to support our students who might receive one of the more intensive interventions, and then they come back to school. We have this existing support that will continue to help with the work they've already been doing. Let's go ahead. So the counseling program specifically, the one I'm talking about that we're going to be doing at York, obviously has been made possible through the funding that was provided by the Rotary Club of Elmhurst. So a part of the funding that we received will actually go to pay our Rosecrans representatives to come in and provide the group. With that funding, though, they will also provide supports to parents, make follow-up phone calls with parents. If parents are interested, they'll teach them how to do drug screenings at home so that they can continue the support. So there's a lot that kind of goes into that Rosecrans partnership. It creates additional levels of intervention that we don't currently have at York High School. Provides ongoing support, like I said, for those students who are coming back from inpatient or outpatient treatment, and also just helps us to really round out our support so that when we're working with students, we're connecting with their parents, we're connecting with all the school staff members. Rosecrans will help all of our student support team members to know how they're working with the students so that we can provide that when Rosecrans is not in the building. So here's the progress we've made so far. So we established the partnership with Rosecrans Health Network. We've started discussing the anticipated parameters around what that will look like, as well as outcome measurement. So what I want to make sure that I can provide to you at the end of the day, and to us as well, is that this has actually been effective at impacting student behavior related to substance use. And the third is ongoing professional learning community work that we've done with the York Students Services team. So we've really been looking at how at York we can expand the interventions and supports that we have available to students. And over the past year, we've been digging into how can we proactively evaluate the data that we have on our students to determine which students might be in need of additional interventions, such as the ones that we've been talking about, and to make sure that we're not missing any. To identify what is the data and what are the indicators that we have in our school that will make sure that there aren't students falling between the cracks. So that's the work we've been doing the last year. And then next steps, if you want to hit that, Erin, perfect. So we're going to finalize the referral procedures, the referral process and procedures. So what does it look like when a staff member wants to refer a student? How do we connect the parents into that? We're working on finalizing that with Rosecrans. We're working on starting to identify which students might be in need of this intervention and then referring them for an assessment with Rosecrans. And then we are talking with our partners that we've been working with through the Rotary Club on how we're going to publicize this available programming to the community and how we're going to publicize what that partnership looks like. And I've heard Lee might be my guy. So that's the first component of what we've been talking about in terms of this partnership. There's a second component. What we've kind of added is this expanded prevention efforts. So one of the things that I've been talking with Greg and Rob and Kevin and Wes I've met with is a lot of what we're seeing at the high school is, well, we do have students that we need to intervene with regards to substance use. What we're often seeing is that it's students after they leave high school who end up kind of getting into more of these harder drugs, the heroin that we're very concerned about in Elmhurst. It's not necessarily when they're in high school, but there are a lot of things that we can be doing while students are in high school to make sure that we are better setting them up to avoid those pitfalls in the future. And so one of the things we've talked about is having a dedicated group space within the high school where we can proactively work on some of the skills that our students might be missing. And so one of the things we plan on doing within that is proactively teaching necessary social and emotional skills. So how to deal with anxiety, how to cope with stressors, all of these things that sometimes we take for granted that we might have healthy coping mechanisms that our students don't have, that then opens up the road for finding some unhealthy coping mechanisms. Helping students to process through challenging life circumstances so that they know how to do that and they know they have supports to come to, again, instead of turning to unhealthy supports. The other nice thing about having this space at York, it really normalizes and emphasizes the importance of this. We are an academic institution first and foremost, but if our students are going to grow and succeed, then we need to be supporting their social and emotional skills as well. It all is tied in together, so this really helps to promote that this is important to the school. And also helps us to increase the number of students served. We didn't have a dedicated space to serve students in groups at a time. So this is really going to allow us to meet the needs of a much larger number of students. Go ahead. So here's what we've done so far. So we've identified, moved everything around in the school, and painted the space that we found to be the ideal space at York. The reason that we love it is because it's actually in the same larger office that all of our counselors, social workers, psychologists, and deans are already in. We have students who pop down there for all different kinds of reasons. So there's nothing that would be identifying about a student going to that space. They might be there to be in our group space. They might be in there for all kinds of other reasons. And it really is just a great access point for students coming into the school. We've initiated some new professional learning focuses for this year. So I talked about kind of how we've been using data in the last year to better identify students. Some of the focuses that we're going to have this year is on developing some of these groups that we can implement in the space. It's also going to be on making sure that we know how we're measuring the effectiveness of this group. Social and emotional skills can be hard to assess. So we're coming up with assessment tools so that we can make sure that we're documenting that students are growing. We also purchased furniture to facilitate those group interactions. And so we did a lot of research about furnitures and colors and all of those things that will best fit the space. And thanks to the donation that we received, we were able to purchase that furniture. So next steps, like I said, we're going to identify the student needs that we have and make sure that we're establishing groups to meet those needs. We're going to finish purchasing all of the room decor that we need for it, things like clipboards and whiteboards and things that students can actually complete activities while they're in there. And then again, we want to come up with this publicity plan to get out to the community that we're doing this in partnership. So I have a surprise. I had originally told Rob that we were not going to have our furniture. It was on back order. I do have the initial picture. The room is not yet decorated, but it does have some beautiful furniture in it. So yeah, I don't so this is just the bare bones furniture in the space. I will say the color is a little bit nicer in person. It's a little bit dull on here. But as you can see, I mean, it really sets up a comfortable space for students to get together and kind of work on skills together. And it's not as rigid as a classroom might be. Right now we've got a really kind of subtle monotone, kind of calming color in there, but we're going to bring in some artwork. We've already been partnering with our art department on how we can get student artwork into there so it can really be a student space. We'll get some lamps, make nice lighting, pillows, all of those things. So I'm hoping, I know I'm already on the docket to come back in November. I'll have many updates by then, but one of the updates I will have is another picture for you of kind of the finished room decorated and ready to go. That's all that I have for you today. I don't know if people have questions about any of this. Yeah?
I'm curious how you will identify a student that has a need.
Absolutely. So there are a couple of different ways that we do it. So in the past, a lot of the methods that we used to identify students were either a teacher referral, like I have this student in my classroom and something seems wrong, or he or she's not doing okay. A parent contacting us and letting us know that there's a concern, or the student actually identifying themselves. We have a number of students who will come down and seek out a social worker or seek out a counselor for social or emotional support. Another way that we've always done is through special education programming. So when we have students who have been identified with special education needs, then through that process, we'll identify that they might need ongoing support for anxiety or to learn decision-making skills. But what we've added in the past year is really this proactive data analysis. So we'll pull school-wide data, like this week our teams are starting on attendance. We're pulling attendance from the beginning of the year and starting to identify those students who are falling outside of the normal range and have already, in the first 3 weeks of school, been missing days of school for whatever reason. And then we start to dig into why and what we need to do to better support them. So we're doing similar things by pulling data around how many students are frequent flyers in the social work office, how many are frequent flyers in the nurse's office, that's a big one. Pulling log entries for our discipline, how many students are referred to the dean for consequences. And so what we're trying to do is figure out who those outliers are and making sure that they're connected with supports. So there are a number of ways, yeah.
If there's another question, please repeat it so we can pick up the audio.
Absolutely, absolutely. So
Other
the,
questions?
yeah.
It was mentioned previously that this would be called the Rotary Room.
Yes, so the question is what the room will be called, and that it was mentioned previously that it will be called the Rotary Room. I don't have a specific name for it. We had absolutely talked about making sure that Rotary's name was on it. I know that Greg is working on a plaque.
Just a banner.
Yes.
We're going to make a plaque that's going to be on the door that says with the Rotary symbol.
Yes.
This is funded by Rotary.
Great.
That's
Great.
what
Yeah, so Greg's on the plaque.
The head of the Boy Scouts here
Yeah.
said if we get these kids in the Scouts or sports from own,
Yeah,
you know.
absolutely.
So
I said Scouts, I said sports.
Yeah, so we're definitely interested in any way that we can get kids better connected into the school community and into the greater community, absolutely.
I know it's really early, but how many students do you think you'll be serving?
Yes.
In place? I mean, are you thinking 20, or are you thinking 100, or are you thinking 300?
Yeah, so the question is how many students we think that we will be able to serve. There are kind of two different components. So the one is the actual substance abuse program with Rosecrans. That one we are allotting potentially 2 groups to run this year, and those would be maybe 8 to 10 students each. We're going to start the group even if we don't have that many students because we don't want to delay, but we can always add students later on. So we'd be able to serve up to about 20, and when we kind of assessed last year with our social workers, they thought that might be a good number to start with. And then in terms of the actual group space itself, to be honest with you, we could serve hundreds of students through this space. There are so many different needs. Some of them are these proactive, like, you know, the anxiety and things like that. And some of them are just students who might have a common experience that they need time to sit down together and talk through their common experiences. An example I had given before was we have a number of newcomer students who come to us from outside of the United States. We have a large population that comes usually every November from Guatemala. And so they're coming and they're thrown into a new country and don't necessarily have resources or connections. And so to get them together to process through the experiences that they're having, I think is a great way to help to build those skills and again, make them feel part of their larger community. So yeah, there are a number of different needs I think we'll be able to serve through this space.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember about 15 years ago, my oldest daughter was going to high school, and there was a parent-teacher meeting, or not parent-teacher, but there was some thing for all the freshmen, and they announced that 1% of all this freshman class coming in will probably be addicted to heroin by the time they graduate. And I think it was 1%. Is that percent up higher now? Do they throw out numbers?
To be honest, I don't think that we have new statistics because things have evolved so much in the last even decade around the heroin use and its accessibility. We don't have statistics specific to heroin that we've shared. What's interesting, we were actually just talking about this over lunch, is the timing of it. We don't necessarily see students who are graduating addicted to heroin, at least not a significant percentage. It's more the group that is out of college or just leaving college in their mid-20s that we're then seeing as kind of the largest group that's being impacted. And so we're trying to figure out how do we get ahead of that when they're in high school. But I can look into that a little bit more even and bring it back.
Is there any way for people to be able to see the room?
Absolutely. So, yeah, I mean, if anybody here is ever interested, please let us know, and we can make sure that, we can get you into the building to come see it. I think through talking about our publicity plans, we want to have at least, an evening where we're able to announce it and kind of open it up to people to come see when we do our ribbon cutting or, however we determine we want to move forward.
We have regularly, as a group, done lunches at York.
Okay.
So maybe in November that could be coordinated, that we could have lunch there.
Wonderful.
Provided by La Brigade. And,
Okay.
and,
Okay.
um,
Oh, with La Brigade.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Tour.
Okay.
Come.
Oh, perfect. So, yeah, so the suggestion is to host a luncheon with the La Brigade at York. And if anybody has not had La Brigade luncheon, it's our students who participate in our culinary arts programs put on a beautiful luncheon. Absolutely. So we can check and see what date that is and let Rob know the date of when La Brigade would serve in November. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Lee.
Yes, you were talking about using social media heavily. What kinds of things would you be doing?
With the publicity? Yes. So a few of us had met a few weeks ago, August 11th, and talked through kind of initial planning for publicity. And one of the things we talked about is all of the social media outlets we could potentially use. So in terms of District 205 in York High School, and especially Aaron DeLuga, there are a number of different outlets that we use via Facebook, Twitter. I'm trying to think of Twitter and Facebook are big ones, but even just our websites, that we would certainly want to make sure that we're putting social media stories out there for everybody to know that this has been done in partnership and really what the purpose is and what our hopes are. And then other things, I know that Rob had talked about putting together a video presentation that we could put out to the community. So I think that is definitely a next step, is figuring out what that publicity really can look like. Anything else?
Have you had any feedback from parents at all on this?
So we have not yet, because we have not put it out to parents yet. We're kind of hoping to have our, big presentation and obviously do it in partnership so that when we're announcing it, we're, doing it together. I will say our student services staff and our staff as a whole has been thrilled and are really excited, and it's been great because staff have come up to me who don't even work with student services with all kinds of ideas of things that we can do to better serve our students. So I think it's really pulling everybody together around that common theme of wanting to support students socially and emotionally.
I want to make one more comment too. We've been working with Melissa and Aaron for a while now. It's great that we're doing this. Just to give you an idea of just the level of buy-in to this, used to be Melissa's office, and she literally left this office to move into a smaller office because this would have been a perfect setting for this. So that just gives you an idea of.
Thanks, Yeah, thank you. No, this is incredibly important to us, and I can't wait to come back in November or at La Brigade in November and share with you what I know we're going to do in the next few months. So we're very thankful for your support.
Thank you.
Thank you.